welcome to another episode of Rising from the Ashes. This video is about some of the steps which you will have to take permanently in order to consolidate the gains you've achieved from quitting smoking so far and ensuring that you stay quit permanently and sustainably. If you are new to the channel and just starting to quit smoking, I highly recommend checking out my playlist, Quit Smoking Cold Turkey, in order to get resources to start your quitting smoking journey and get tips on a day-by-day and week-by-week basis. If you have been regularly following the channel and you have used the tips and tricks in order to quit smoking for more than 4 weeks, this video is for you and it will help you start incorporating some practices over a longer term, which will ensure that you don't relapse back into smoking after doing all the hard work of quitting so far. In order to avoid relapse, we are going to learn 2 concepts. The first concept, that even after quitting, that we will always be smokers and will not have power over smoking. And the second concept of smoking memories and pleasure seeking, which might come a few months after we quit smoking. Let us talk about the first idea. Even though we've quit smoking, the nicotine receptors in our brain, which was responsible for making us addicted to smoking in the first place, will always lie dormant, waiting for the right opportunity to push us back into addiction. The way to really combat this dormant receptors for life is by adopting the credo which is used by a lot of the anonymous organizations like Narcotics Anonymous, Nicotine Anonymous, and Alcoholic Anonymous, which is recognize this idea that we are powerless over nicotine. It is recognizing the idea that we are powerless over smoking and nicotine, and there will never be a circumstance where we will be able to control it. And this is not because we are weak, or this is not because we will not be able to try hard enough. It is just the nature of the chemical, which is highly addictive and which will stop us from thinking rationally as soon as we start using it. What this basically means is once we've quit smoking, we cannot go back and flirt with smoking. We cannot have one cigarette in a party, or we cannot go and let's say, have a Sunday smoke or things like that. That is just not possible. We are actually making our life much more easier by accepting and acknowledging that we are powerless over smoking and avoiding all contact with it, rather than trying to come up with a warped world where we are able to experiment or flirt or try 1 or 2 cigarettes at a time. That is a road to disaster and can lead to only one thing, which is full-fledged addiction. Doing so requires setting aside our ego, giving up some pretense we have that we are powerful over nicotine, and accepting the fact that we are much more happier in our life when we know that we are not able to control this substance. It was finally adopting this mindset that I'm completely powerless over nicotine and smoking, which helped me quit smoking for good and helped me pass through some situations where I would have relapsed previously. We will always be smokers, and knowing that makes us much more likely to be careful in situations involving smoke than a false confidence that we have, cut off smoke for good or that we control smoking. Nicotine is a very powerful chemical and also a very powerful enemy. And we'll have to be on the guard lifelong to ensure that it doesn't come back into our life again. The second concept of pleasure seeking and smoking memories is now that we've quit smoking for some time, one of the things which we'll have to fight against the hardest is we will be constantly bombarded by some of the best memories we had of smoking. This would be maybe when you received a job, or or the smoke you had when you first fell in love, or the smoke you had as soon as you witnessed the birth of your child. Our minds will try to convince us that now that we've quit smoking, we can go back and relive only those pleasurable smokes or those pleasurable memories by having one-off cigarettes. Our addicted mind and programmed mind will also tell us now that we've quit smoking, we can go and have all of this without the pain of having to smoke 20, 30, 40 cigarettes a day. It will also tell us that having this one-off cigarette will make us happy and will bring back all of those glorious memories. And this is one of those biggest deceptions, which is like one of the last holdovers of the fact that we've smoked for such a long time and that we've made smoking such a big, important part of our identity. But having gone through the horror of a relapse, let me tell you the truth. The first smoke you'll have after you quit smoking will be horrible. It will be like putting your mouth on the exhaust of a car or standing in the middle of a coal plant. You will cough immediately. You will not enjoy that cigarette. It will not create any of those pleasurable memories. In fact, this would be true for the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, many cigarettes once you've kind of quit smoking and try to relapse. The only way you'll get back this pleasure is once you've got it addicted enough that then you have a nicotine withdrawal and you get pleasure from replenishing it with cigarettes or vapes. Sure, at this point it's pleasurable, but you are back to where you started, being a smoking or a nicotine addict. And if you're in this stage, it means then having to climb that hill again of quitting smoking from day 0, day 1, day 2 and 3 and so on. If you're faced with this sort of pleasure-seeking memories, remember the first point we talked about. You are powerless over smoking. You will never be able to control your nicotine intake in a way that it doesn't completely envelop you and make you a nicotine addict again. Also, think of this pleasure-seeking as the last stand of nicotine, as it's realizing that it's losing the battle and it's throwing its most powerful weapon before it ultimately dies. These kind of pleasure-seeking memories will slowly taper over the next 2 to 3 months. And by 3 months, you will hardly have any of these. But the next 2 to 3 months are an important phase in your quitting smoking journey, where you quit smoking, where you don't have physical symptoms, where you've combated some of the mental cues. Then it's important to kind of recognize this for what this is and know that the only way to succeed is by recognizing these cues for what they are and extinguishing them. And if you're able to do so, that will create a permanent foundation for you to quit smoking and lead the happy life which you've always wanted. If you're facing situations like these, please do add in the comments what are the common types of situations you're facing and how you're combating them. And once again, if you've reached so far, you've reached much, much, much farther than most people who would have quit smoking have reached. It's important to follow these 2 tips which we learned today to continue this journey and make sure you stay quit permanently. Thank you. You've been watching Rising from the Ashes.